shot. Welcome to my painting studio, and I hope I can help clear all this up. I apologize deeply for all of this. I never wanted any of it. I was dilatory in communicating to you, and we had bad communications from the start. And that was only a result of my good intentions, which was a case of the road to hell being paved with good intentions. That being said, there were some systemic issues at play here that prevented any proper communication, because God knows I tried, but obviously not hard enough, and I don't in any way. I understand you have a business to run. Are we on?
Yes.
Okay. This road to hell paved with good intentions started with incremental movements, and they just went from bad to worse. And it was a series of miscommunications that branded me, and it was my intent to be nice, and I'll show you exactly how that happened. The first example of how this whole thing started was with Color Wars. And here you can see the set, and it was the impression that, can you get a close-up, John? So, we're at the drinking challenge, and the situation was one of a directive rather than a request, or even a proper communication. Well, I rolled out to take part in my team's effort and meet the competitor over here. At which point, the woman running the color war said, "Mark, you better check with your team first." Now that was a directive and a comment. It wasn't, did you check with your team first? It was an assumption that A, I hadn't checked with my team, and B, to follow her directive. Now rather than saying, well yes, I actually had checked with my team, and they had declined the challenge and asked me to take the challenge, and the next step in this diminution of communication was causing me more consternation, and conversely, you guys more concern. And that's what's really messed up about it, is because we both had good intent, but we were on a divergent course. I'm trying harder and trying to play nicer and let things go, which I really shouldn't have in the first place. And we'll get into what I call the plethora of principles at play that, I'll just say it now. I'm dyslexic, so I'm not used to sticking up for myself and explaining myself. There's a need to play nice just to get along. There's also an inherent, and this cannot be overshadowed, and I'm not trying to throw mud here, I'm just saying what it is. Look, my intent in this whole thing is to bring out the best in each other and find where we went wrong and see that it never happens again, and bring out the best in each other so that we're not only better people, so that the house is better, and so that this kind of thing just doesn't happen. And in saying so, I have to say, and everybody knows, that's why I gave up the Euro trip, that's why my partner gave up the Euro trip, is because there's a systemic issue of renewal. And we both agreed that the European trip, the Soho house is way better than the Euro trip, and that if we made an issue of that, there may be repercussions. And that has to be, we have to be aware of that, and that with my dyslexia not wanting to speak up, and that I'm under the impression that everything's okay, because we had some great times together and we're all laughing. And like I said, had I known, I would, and I had bent over backward, but I would have made it clear to bent over backward in the right direction. That's killing me with light there, please. So, what I'm saying is, here we are showing how we got on the wrong direction. Okay, here we are at the print class, and the gal running it is a wonderful gal. We shared lots of laughs, but again, she's under some different impressions of me, and she's not aware of my good intent. Her impression of me is also based on fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence appearing real. Both my reputation that preceded me from the Standard, and her impressions of me, and these impressions that grew into allegations and these dastardly accusations that are not good for either of us and harmful for both. So, let me just go through the print class thing, which was a bear of a class. I went to the Colorado college, and of course the other thing is that, so now we're examining the next step of the slippery slope of having two divergent levels of communication, and both thinking we're doing a hell of a job helping each other out, doing the best for the house, doing the best for all. Well, we're actually hurting each other because we're not speaking truthfully, and we're kind of beating around the bush. And actually, at this point, God, nice gesture. What are you distracting me? At this point, it became an issue for me because it brought harm to me and a client, because the things got awkward to the point that I had to mention it. And I'll just say, and again, I'm not casting dispersions. I'm trying to be objective and just say what the hell happened. So what happened was this. The next level is, or here we are at the beautiful screening snug at an event. And so I'm sharing the idea of this thing going from bad to worse. Now the communication is diminished to the point that I have to mention something, and that should have been a step for improving. And you know, it's crazy that I almost lived down like the whole damn standard thing, and I won that Patung trip, and then a whole series of unfortunate events happened, like that yoga thing, which was only the result of one other. I totally wasn't. You see, you were hurt, and you were hurt, and I'm sorry I hurt you. You thought I was running hog wild and being some sort of an asshole, and you worked very hard to make the Soho House beautiful, and you think I'm wrecking it by running hog wild and ruining a trip. And God, you get complaints, so you got to make it. You got to do something about it. Now, that's the Gestapofication of the nation that I'll get to. But in any event, that came up, and at a very unfortunate time, because I had I'm smoking. I had a cancer scare. I couldn't get an answer from my doctor. I got a terrible situation at that point where I had a lot on my mind, and I was drinking, but I wasn't drunk. And there was only one student there, so I went up there and I took the class at his suggestion, and they were offended, as you were offended, with the idea of me running hog wild, and that wasn't the case. But the point is, I had mentioned that in an email, and I thought that had kind of cleared things up, and I thought that I was doing the right thing by kind of, taking the penalty card, because I had to sort through the whole cancer thing anyway. Otherwise, I would have been a little more direct in addressing it. But I did send the email, and it wasn't ever regarded. It was disregarded, just as the renewal was disregarded, and that was wrong and hurtful. The renewal, this one I kind of lived with, but again, it's this diminution of communication bringing me more consequences, and we can look at that. So, as we plot this graph from color war to insinuation to assumption at the print class, now to the email. Now it's bringing these assumptions to accusations to direct action, and I should have spoke up, but I didn't. But I took the direct action in the same thing, and it's a result of now your negative impression is growing to drunk and dangerous, and then it goes to the taking of something that's mine, which was the Euro trip, and I'll discuss that briefly in a second. To a whole host of horrific allegations that were just absolutely awful. To say these terrible things about me, I can't have them. But I'm a lewd and fastidious in the locker room. I'm a locker room guy, that's a given. But I'm within the bell-shaped curve of normal behavior in the locker room, and many will attest to that. I can go through that in great detail. But again, it's a question of seeing it from both perspectives and respecting both perspectives to learn. So speaking of the war, we're on the same side. And I want that to be clear. Let's look at this. You get a close shot of this little World War II propaganda poster. They've got more important places to go than you. Save integrity. Check your facts now. So that's a little bit of what I'm saying here is that it's the impression, but I want to make it crystal clear that we're on the same road, and that I am in this same Jeep as you, and that I am not a creep. And that's what stinks for me about a lot of this, is that it makes me out to be a creep, and of course I can't have that. And with the things said, blah blah blah. We'll get to that. So, that being said, again, if I had been more assertive in saying, "C'est pas vrai," well, this is not the case. Fermez la bouche. Very passionate, which is not my style. To kind of put the kibosh on a lot of these things, it wouldn't have come to this, but that gives the idea that I'm incapable and incompetent and maybe an easy target. And that's something we'll have to discuss also, that and some of the things that I will amend so that you don't get any complaints, because look, you've had some complaints, but if you took this easy shot at me, are we live?
Yes.
Okay. So now this idea of Gestapification of the nation, I want to touch base on that quickly, because it can probably, I hope it can help y'all, because it's what's going on, and it's part of your job to ferret out the truth. And of course you have these preconceptions of me, so they fit neatly in that. And of course, humans, that's our idea. We connect the dots. That's what makes us help us to survive, so that we can anyway. This guy obviously had some issues with me, and he runs and tells you. And of course, the way things are presently, the person telling is given all the credit, and because it's not in my nature. And the reason I don't like to tell on people is, first of all, you give up your personal power, because you're saying I can't solve my own problems, which is just weak and lame. Secondly, it just causes more harm. It just spreads harm. It just hurts other people. And thirdly, it's just like the debasement of society. In boarding school, I used to drink a lot. And here is, it's been my failure, for a careful word, with you, but we've never been able to have that, and it certainly didn't have it in the renewal, because I was left clueless, and that's a cause of consternation and pain, because everybody has the right to see their accusers, but because I'm dyslexic, I didn't speak up, and I think you thought I was an idiot because I was like Mr. Fun Guy, and you didn't give me a chance to speak up, and you leveraged my weakness against me, and it hurt, and it sucked. And it's brought not only harshness to me and hurt, which was mean to me, because we were having a grand old time, and I was under the impression things were okay, and nobody likes to be misled, yada yada. And so, anyway, so I flew the planes over there, and I had a great time, and I got the privilege of flying this cool-ass plane, which is the T-34. It's a Navy plane in this model, but it said Air Force on it, and when I was flying from Buckley, Colorado. And it was a super fun plane, and again, and I'm not a saint, and you know that. And I had a lot of fun with this plane, because I would do stuff like that. And they had a little luggage lock in the back, and you would put the little luggage thing in the back there, a little lock, and well, somehow it got back here at one point, and they're like, the only way I was supposed to do, they call these aerobatics, and so they knew that I was kind of a wild guy. But anyway, that happened, and then what the point of this story is, we need to find a resolve to this that is in our mutual best interest, and I don't like to be confrontational, and I never will, because I was raised, and also, the whole thing, I gotta tell you, offends not me, but the memory of my parents and the way I was raised, which was absolutely ridiculous to say such things of me, that I'm a thief, and that I am a glutton, but not at the detriment to others. I was always on the swim team, and I was raised not to be a glutton, not to be a terrible glutton at the detriment of others. And that was, and I'll get to that in a minute, because what happened here is the communication got so bad, and when you think it can't get any worse, it gets absolutely horrible. And it's, again, it's your desire do your job, but you're not doing it right if you're saying crap about me that's not true, and what you're doing is connecting dots in your own mind, but they're false dots. You're coming up with stuff. And I love Pierre, and I'll share, and he really busted him off on me, you know, and I love that guy a lot romantically, because he was very helpful in sticking up for me in a hurtful situation that was a result of this. And I know he's got a great heart and he's a good guy. He has his routine, and he pulled his routine on me, and of course I saw right through that, and I'll mention that in a little cheeky rant. But let's get through this thing because my back hurts. Come on. So I'm at the Air Force Academy, and I get the privilege of flying this plane, and the goddamn thing runs out of gas. Can you beat that? And I've just been doing these touch and goes at Buckley Field, having a ball, and so here's the plane, and I'm doing my little touch and goes at Buckley Field, and then so when I bring up these systemic issues, and I bring up, you know, what your concerns about me, I'm willing to saddle up, because there's an expression: if 99 people call you a horse, it's time to saddle up. And I've made a saddle and put a lot of thought into exactly how I'm going to saddle up and reduce your concerns, action steps I'm willing to take, and the idea that, yeah, you know, I should have been walking on eggshells in the first place, or I should have, like when my parents kicked me out of the country club, been concerned about your perception of me, but I thought it was okay, and he gave me every indication it was. Anyway, I think you all have some saddling up to do too, and this is a more traditional saddle that you might like, but I think we can ride into the future together if we look squarely and just get real and reel this thing in. And as I said, Jeanette and I just gave up that trip willingly because of the power of renewal. And that is something that absolutely has to be discussed, because it was a deterrent in me speaking my mind. And it's important for the House to value its members and value people. And particularly if you're an artist, or if you're somebody who brings value to the House, which I have. I mean, I've got a bunch of euros that have come back to the House because I've included them in Color Wars, and got 3 euros that returned because I got them in it, and a bunch of people who will attest to my contributions, as well as old guy who I got to have a meal, and anyway, I'll go through because I'm asking you to look at this in a fair and balanced way, because there's a lot on the line for both of us. I can discuss that in detail, but this is like a cursory look. So, and obviously, my goal here is to find an amiable solution, and I think I can outline that. With the concept of building trust and mutual respect, because it's funny, and I'm going to get into a whole prejudice thing, because you took geez, I'm raising my voice. Rolling?
Rolling.
So anyway, yeah, it upsets me because it defames a parent's memory who raised me with etiquette, politeness, and grooming. Not to take all the food, even though I am a glutton. And I had this incident, like I said, at the Grand Hotel, where I just snaked all the food, and they made me repay it with eating a light breakfast and docked my allowance. So I have never, ever snaked all the food at a buffet. I'm thoughtful and conscientious of others and the impact that it has on them. So when you said that kind of thing, it's just crap. Another example of that is I was on the swim team, and we'd have a feedback after a 10,000-yard workout, and I would never take food from my mates, on the swim team. So, however, your concerns, that what I do is I'm not a shark, I'm more like a bottom feeder. I would definitely have no problem waiting until all the food is, everybody's picked through at the end of the event, and I would take the scraps for sure, like a bottom feeder. But that doesn't hurt anybody. And then you're talking about me taking the, and this is crazy, that somebody's watching me so closely. Oh yeah, we got to get into the whole thing about the prejudice and discrimination, because private clubs have a history of being the last bastion of certain bars to fall, and I'm intimately familiar with that. So anyway, so you've got some guy who's watching me so closely, and that's like an invasion of my privacy, to say that I'm taking little products from the house. Well, I do that like twice a week, about twice a week, well, depending, maybe 4 times a month, average, where I will have a big swim from 43rd to 31st, and I'll have the products in my swimsuit, at which point I'll buy a 6-pack of beer, Heineken, and take a beer shower with half of them and slam half the others, and then I will exfoliate, because I wouldn't do that at the house, because it would be like freaking people out if I had a bunch of beer in the house showering. So I do that over in the public showers, and then I take the products with me to do that, and that's like one of my quirky things that I'm free to do, but you can't have, it's unfortunate for me, and it does hurt me, that this was done, and it was simply wrong and bad, and it was done for no other reason than it could be, and that's like kind of the renewal question and failure of communication. That is dyslexics, and this is something that actually can help people, and I think we should do that together. And here we can look at this one, because you got the wrong, here you say, you can't afford to miss either. Oh my God. I don't want to, I mean, I gotta say this, because I definitely felt bullied. Bullies vary payday. Well, look at, when I say things like, you did it because you could do it, you thought that you were solving a problem and running your business the best that you could and doing the best for a place we cherish. But to me, it hurt my feelings because it made me feel bullied, and I'll tell you why. Because I've had a number of experiences in those situations, and I felt safe with you guys, and I felt that that was not the case, because we passed each other several times each day, sometimes more than multiple occasions, where we'd actually have a drink and a laugh and share a common experience and have a good old time, and you didn't think I'd speak up, and this happened. And you can see here that and I don't want to fight, but it's my liberty. You see, what's happened to me, and it's the definition of bullying, is to have your liberties hampered. And Jesus Christ, I'm making this video now, and that's definitely hampered my my liberties. What's worse than asking a dyslexic to write something? Asking somebody else to read his writing, you know? It's been a pain in the ass for you guys to read that. So let's look at this one now and try and see, and I'll show you the right flyer later, and we'll go through things and see if we can hasten a homecoming, get a sense of doing good for each other and doing the right thing, and what's principatorily and factually and morally correct, because you know, what happened simply happened. They say, c'est la vie. That's the way things go. We say that's the way the cookie crumbles. But it's been my experience that the way the cookie crumbles is fine, but it's what you do with the dough. And I think we can make something, and I'll make more food analogies because I'm getting hungry. The thing had more holes in it than but we have to just kind of explain exactly how this damn thing happened, because there are elements of prejudice to this thing that hurt. I can express that in a little joke, because the way it went down. When the mayor of Hiroshima felt the shockwave of the atomic bomb, what did he say? What the fuck was that? Well, that's a little bit how I felt as this thing was dropped on me. And of course I'm irradiating with some stinging feelings. But that happens. And it can particularly happen in places that light is killing me. Just roll, keep rolling, John. It can particularly happen in places of privilege, and historically it has. And because I'm dyslexic, and that kind of went down that way. Um, there's a host of prejudice from Catholics to Jews to blacks to gays and maybe to dyslexics. And it's funny that is always exemplified in places of privilege. That's kind of the last bastion. And you know, it's maybe because the devil's hands, the devil has the idle hands. You know, like this guy who's nothing better to do than look into me locker, look into me locker, which he did. The point of the story is, the founder is dyslexic. And the Union League Club, which was based on the idea of abolishing slavery as keeping the Union. Are we filming? Okay. So we have this power of projection that can cause us to take not only harmful actions to ourselves but to others because of our own, again, fear, false evidence appearing real, based on incorrect information. And our feelings that we really have to overcome to become one, because that's what this is about. And another thing that I've learned is everybody talks about oneness. Well, and I think the advantage for dyslexics is they don't want to go over the top like the queers. We're queer and we're here and we're there, but they want to be able to say we're a little different and deal with it. And I have a whole thing, because you can't tell. The dyslexic's brain is configured differently from that of the average bear. The hemispheres are equally symmetrical, whereas non-dyslexic's hemisphere on the left side is larger. And consequently, they have a different little approach, and I've had to have this approach to get by in my life and to succeed. And that's how I've overcome many things. I was, as I said, in the learning disabilities school, special ed class, and had that trip to Europe and had a little taste of the real world. I absolutely hated the awful things that were said of me. And that's where prejudice comes in too, because it's not necessarily what they do, it's what they say. And that's what really hurts. We'll get into that with the Rosa part. So I did this trip to Europe with so many times with my parents that I was in these special ed classes, commingled with regular classes, and I was able to play hooky and go downtown to Chicago on the L. And get to see the world and get out of the awful life of being subjugated, prejudicated, castigated, and hang out. And I did that, and it was a lovely time for me, to run around the city free like a bird as an 11-year-old, away from being harshed on. And that happened for a long time, but when they found out, my parents and all, they were like really scared for me, and they're like, well, it's like I take the L down, I go down and I play some video games. I got like a $2 with me. This was in the early 70s. I can get a hot dog, play a few video games, check out the city, and get back in time for swim practice. No big deal, but they're like, dude, you could be hurt. Well, then they explained to me also that I should have some money in case I'm mugged, so that if somebody mugs me, and that goes to like the placating of the renewal thing. But anyway, so that degraded to like the terrible school that I went to, the Ashlock Learning Center, where they were really mean to me, and I had to use the bathroom because I have a high metabolism, and I process food quickly, and they were like really harsh about that and ugly, and they were making all sorts of accusations, but it was out of their fear. They were like, is this guy wandering off downtown? And I told them, look, I'm not going to wander off downtown, but I need to use the bathroom. So those rights were on. And so, hold on. When there is nothing left you except the will that says to man, hold on! That's, you gotta play and hold on. And at the same time be cool. So if you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, if you can walk with kings nor never lose your common touch, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fulfill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And once more, you'll be a man, my son, or a woman. So, it's about growing up. Yeah? So, that's what Wozanowski says, who dated McElroy. So that was evident, and we're going to look at Monfils as the fun guy, and y'all have a laugh at me just like you do with Monfils, but I hope you're laughing. I hope we can get it to a level where you're laughing with me, not against me. And so that poem cuts both ways, and I've had the wonderful experience of a year of introspection and personal growth. And I know you have a business to run and you don't have that luxury, but by God, hopefully my imparting of my feelings can encourage you to have some of the same feelings of empathy and consideration for not just what is the business to run, but what is right for people. Because if it's not right, it's wrong. And again, I'm going to the crap boarding school I went to, which was a big help to me, because and there's always one more thing, and this thing can go on forever and ever. But all I'm saying is I'm very genuine with you guys, and I feel that the treatment that I received was rather disingenuous. I collect wine based on labels. I liked this one for this application. This is one of my favorites because it's flawed, and I don't think wine bottles are collectible like coins. The ones that are flawed are worth anymore. I'll show you a couple more from my collection. They're my favorites because I'm an artist. Sometimes I like to meet up with the girls and make paintings, and then I'm like, oh, we can make, but they never look like that. And because I often mispronounce words, and this I think is such an anathema, because the Chianti bottle is always like the wicker bottle with like the little candle, and like Chianti, and you guys have teased me about mispronouncing words, but anyway, that's a dumb dyslexic thing. But the point of the story is, oh boy, of genuineness. I've been very genuine with you guys, and I feel that some of the treatment that I have received has been disingenuine, and of course I understand the ends that it was to serve, and I respect and appreciate and love those ends, because as I said to Laurent, it is not only super that you made Soho House in Miami, but it is incredible, because this is such a shady, sunny place with shady people. And of course you got to be on the lookout for that, and you thought I was that, but let's uphold those standards of genuineness. And just as it would be deplorable to take my flawed red and mix it with my arrogant chard and create a rosé. That would be so horrible. I think that it's important to treat people with the same respect and dignity and genuineness that you would treat wine, because you would never be so disingenuous with wine to create a Chardonnay and a red into a rosé. Yet it can happen as it has happened with me. I'll share a few things that go to that, and my what's about ownership of one's mistakes, and I've done a lot of, and arrogance. Look, after I'd busted my ass to get out of special ed classes and, go through all the riff cards, reading is fundamental, and get to a point where I sucked up AP classes and took a lot of harassment. I was really good at physics, but I couldn't spell the word blue, and I still have trouble with it. And the gal gave me a really hard time in the physics class. She thought I was being an asshole, and she kicked me out, and I had to be